All that's presented tonight is to allow us to go and look, and if there is work that is reasonable, possible, and necessary, to have us have the ability but not the obligation to do that. It allows us to sign agreements with the two landowners that are really at issue, which is 10 Carroll Avenue and the Saley Apartments, I believe.
I mean, this lady has been has problems for years now, and I understand all the hesitation, but the agreement she signed is very protective. We protect the village. I mean, Dan wrote it yesterday. We protect the village from every angle, from every possible, in every possible way. I think, in my part, that they deserve to give them a chance. Now, if we can fix it, we can fix it. And then we, as you said, we're going to go to an engineer and then find out how to correct, do it more permanently.
And I am not going to do anything until there is full and total clearance from each property owner.
Sure.
Steve will go over it.
I'm prepared to sponsor the resolution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. When Terry was in the process of getting a new vacuum truck, the manufacturer, I thought he said, was going to let your department utilize some kind of device to hook up with the jetty thing. Was that ever done, or do we have that or not, or do we gotta wait until we get the new?
Well, Barry filled me in on that discussion. And yes, I mean, the truck isn't here. It won't be here for a while, from my understanding. There are components on the new truck, heads that go on different hose apparatus at the end that may or may not be available for us to use as a demo if we get the right to get in here, if we need them. I mean, we don't know what we need for sure until we
Open it up and see.
look. Yes.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there. But I don't want to go anywhere near any of that, so I'm sanctioned to.
Anything? Do I have a co-sponsor for that?
I'll co-sponsor.
So, all right, so this is for the resolutions. And then we go to general discussion as to Village Hall steps. And I'm just going to ask Mr. Gazzino to elaborate a little bit as to your idea for the front steps.
Front steps, my understanding is that somebody had been asked to do a cursory looking at or inspection of what was needed to mitigate the problem. Those people I reached out to, and they confirmed that they were asked, I don't know, a year or so ago to look at it. No one ever asked for a formal cost analysis or total description of the steps needed to be taken. So my preliminary thought was to reach out to this individual who was already approached by the village at some point, and to have them look at it again, hopefully that I can get a more thorough description from them as to what they thought or think the remedy is. And having said that, I wouldn't be surprised if there are other people that would want to, offer their thoughts, and I would welcome that. But in the meantime, I think that, my first look at it, and I'm not an engineer, but I think that this is something that can be resolved, rather.
Without an engineering study.
Probably.
Right.
But that's just my initial assumptions, and I'm going to continue to proceed to investigate and get as much information as we can as quickly as possible to see what we can do to stabilize that situation.
So if they come and they give us an outlook as to what needs to be done, then I suppose then you can write an RFQ to put out there. Because
Yes,
I imagine there are more people. I know there are more people that would like to bid on that.
I wouldn't doubt it, so that's the way to throw it out there. Yeah.
Is this individual that's providing the thought behind what needs to be done, basically the engineering? Is their firm gonna be, or can they be utilized or?
Yes, yes.
So if you write the specs,
They're not
can you?
engineers,
Can
no.
you?
Well, okay, they're not writing the specs.
No,
What they're
but
doing
I-
is they're trying to figure out what needs to be
What needs to
done.
be done.
They've looked at it, and, you know, basically, we can, once we get an idea from one contractor, what they believe needs to be done, and then I can use that as the basis to write an RFQ, to put it out to all the contractors. And if, you know, and just like a normal RFQ, if there are questions, there's a time for that. If they don't know, if they want more investigation, there's time for that before they put their bid in.
Okay, I just didn't know if that was being considered as engineering.
Yeah, I don't, honestly, Doug, I don't believe we need engineering to fix a
Well,
hole.
I know
You
that, but
that's
let's
kinda-
say-
So basically, we skipped the engineering and went right to the contractors who actually would do the work. The last engineering quote we had just to go to bid, just to take us to the point we had to go to bid, was over $40,000. So basically, we're taking that money, skipping that step, and we can apply that money to actually fixing the problem.
Okay, I just didn't know if there was any conflict of interest of somebody proposing what needs to be done and tailoring it to their, you know, if there was any question there. I
And we
just
have to
wanted
be
double
careful
check.
about that, I agree, we have to be careful about that.
But I mean, we're not designing a wastewater treatment plant, we're fixing a hole that's like this, so.
So it's considered general maintenance. It's a repairing a general maintenance issue that, in your opinion, doesn't necessarily need
Right.
engineering.
Right, and while there are rules, I mean, there's historical building, there's all kinds of rules about how it has to be done, what materials and what color it is, and all that good stuff. We don't need engineering because the historical nature of the building dictates all those things.
And nothing's changing, you're just replacing what, exactly what's there.
Right, so it's just a repair, not a redo, so we
Right.
don't fall into the ADA and all the rest of it, yeah.
Okay.
The concept would be basically get in underneath there, readdress the supporting structures which are failing, do what work we have to stabilize it, put it back together the way it was to preserve the original look. You know, we're not looking to put concrete poured steps in, and there's no way. It's very simple. I agree, this is a maintenance issue, and I'm new here, obviously, but my thought is, for whatever reason, this is an old facility, if things weren't, you know, taken care of, preventive maintenance, whatever, now you people have been forced with addressing it and fixing it. And I think the proper approach would be to get in, once again, I'm a firm believer in taking one step at a time. First of all, identify the problem, identify several thoughts of possible repair of that problem, and get it done. That's all.
That sounds good, thank you. Sounds good, thank you.
Yes, answer? Okay, I'm going to touch a little bit on the North County Water District. Obviously, you got the letter from the North County Water District Board asking us a few questions, very specific questions, and actually they're asking us for a proposal. With everything that went on all this past month, we didn't have time to do that. However, as you said, some of the things were talked about openly, and I'm ready to talk about them openly. I'm not ready to make a proposal. I understand that on their part there is some kind of hesitation, some kind of distrust, some kind of, you know, Fredonia always goes back. Well, it goes for us too. You know, so we have to be able to offer something that is good for the district and is good for us. So I'm going to tell you what my discussion with Mr. Borello had. First of all, I propose that Fredonia will join the North County Water District as a supplier. I understand there is a contract, a very good contract for the city of Dunkirk, which says that the city of Dunkirk is going to be the sole provider, the sole supplier for the whole district, and now and in the future, correct? Mm-hmm. Yes.
For the next 40 years.
For the next 40 years. Well, yes, for the next 40 years. So I understand that. So I said, okay, we can be supplemental, which means we can be when you need us. Maybe you need us tomorrow, maybe you're gonna need us in, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years. We have the capacity, we have some extra water, we have the capacity to produce more water if we upgrade our facilities. Why not? I would like to sell it at the same price and at the same way as Dunkirk, which means we keep our water for our citizens. We sell the water to our citizens the way we do. We keep the control of the rates, and we sell whatever else, whatever more we can produce to the district. I think that's, more than logical. Now, there is an interconnect that is going to be needed. My understanding was that there is the interconnect is going to go from Willowbrook up to our facility through Central Avenue. Now there is a new proposal by their engineer, by Clark Patterson and Lee, which goes through South Roberts Road. My proposal was, my actually thought, was that the Village of Fredonia cannot pay for this interconnect. That's $2.9 million, $2.9 million that we don't have. So I think that the district, the county, the hospital, a combination of them, and maybe partly us can chip in so we can have either a new, brand new interconnect, or we can fix the one we have. So there is this possibility of water going back and forth. I requested that is in our contract is going to be the stipulation that the Village of Fredonia will never be pushed into decommissioning our own reservoir. This is our own. We can do whatever we like with it. Nobody should push us to do something like that. It's good water, it's clean water, it's plenty of water, it's not lake water, so there is an alternative there. And it's cheap because it's gravity fed. And I would like the new hospital to be provided by us. I asked for that. And finally, I asked that they, along with us, try to find grants so we can dredge the reservoir, make our facility more, able to produce more water or to filtrate more water. And my thought was that they can find it, they can apply, we can match it. Pretty much that's where I was. That's where I think the village should be. Now, other requirements, we don't have an engineering study to know any other requirements, but we have some numbers, and I know we can work with those numbers. I really want to send a letter. I really want to have a proposal. I really believe that the City of Dunkirk and the Village of Fredonia together can be a very powerful district, water district, to produce enough water for us and for future businesses in the area. What I don't want, and what I'm afraid of, is that if we don't be that alternative, Erie County Water Authority will be right there. Actually, it is right there. Right now, as they opened, that's the backup. The backup is North Erie County Water Authority. Well, I'm going to be very open. I don't like that idea. I don't think it's a smart idea for the Erie County Water Authority to come down here. But of course, it's going to be up to you and up to North County Water District Board to either accept or reject that. But I want to be on record that I think that the village and the city together can become a very powerful and entity to sell water to us and our customers. So, let's go around the room.
Do you want to start there?
That's all right, I started for this one, this side.
I thought it was my understanding a while back that the boards of the Village of Fredonia, the City of Dunkirk, the mayors, and the Water District Board were supposed to meet, whether separately with the district, each municipality or so forth. I don't know why that never happened or what happened to,
Because they didn't want to. The North County Water District Board, after I went there and I talked about it, and Mr. Borello was with me, and also Mr. Rosas was there, many other people were there. We discussed that possibility. That was my impression. I left the room. About 2 or 3 weeks later, we got this letter asking for these clarifications, and no meeting.
okay, well, I don't know if the rest of the board has all this information. I myself do not have this information, all the things that you are speaking of. So, I mean, this meeting was kind of, I thought, the most productive way to go about this, so we're all on the same page and we know what's going on. I mean, the information you have.
I didn't keep it for myself. The information is in the paper.
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is where meetings with the boards would be productive. That you know, do you have this information? I mean, I don't know on the paper. I'm not getting my information
I think you
from
have
the
this
paper.
information because I know Mr. Borello talked to you.
Yes, but we don't have particular information. You're correct. When we talked to Mr. Borello, the assumption was that the boards were going to sit down and meet and we were going to discuss things before we even came to going to a proposal stage.
There is no proposal right now, Mr. Essen.
They're asking for a
Yes,
proposal
because they
based
are
on the information
already,
that you gave them.
As you remember, no, actually, they're asking for a proposal just on the fact that I went there and I said, I want to be part of the district. Period. Nothing else. I expressed an interest after I thought about it a lot. I met with Mr. Borello right before Christmas. He asked me to look at it again. He believes, and he said that in the open meeting with the board of the North County Water District, that the backup of a source that comes from the lake should not be from the lake. He didn't think that was a smart idea. I don't think it's a smart idea. So we discussed it right before Christmas. He asked me to look at it in a more like out-of-the-box way, if I could, and I did. I called him back. This is what I was supposed to do. I mean, I can't go to the board with any idea without having something more about it to say. I came to the board when I had something.
I think it would have been more productive if the entire board, before you went to the meeting, we would have discussed what was discussed with Mr. Borello.
No,
previous.
that's not my. Me and Mr. Borello and I can discuss things.
But
Yeah.
now we're being forced into making a proposal, giving a proposal to the North County Water District when this entire board hasn't been part of this decision of what was proposed.
It was never proposed. It was an idea. Dan was with me in every meeting, pretty much, except the first one. So he can explain a little bit better.
Let me take a round explaining this. Basically, there have been some meetings, only in generalities have things been discussed, okay? Yes, a meeting between the boards regarding, the arrangement going forward is necessary. The way that my understanding is they want to kick off, for at least the discussion of that, and that meeting, would be to have a proposal so that we're not just walking into the meeting and going, oh, well, we're here and we'd like to be with the North County Water District. Something more substantive so it can be discussed. It's just a proposal, not a contract, not an agreement, not an MOU, just a simple proposal to begin those discussions that you're talking about, Doug.
Well, they're asking for a detailed proposal should include potential infrastructure requirements, proposed water purchase rates, available water volumes, timelines, and any other relevant items that would enable the Village of Fredonia to function as a viable supplier to the new regional system in addition to our current primary supplier, the City of Dunkirk. So they're looking for pretty specific stuff. And
they're looking for a proposal to begin the conversation so we don't all just sit around as this has been sitting around for a dozen years, looking at each other, hoping for the best. They're looking for a proposal to begin the discussion. That's all.
Okay, well, it was my assumption with the discussion with County Executive Borello that the boards were going to meet and discuss things, and that's.
Well, let's start the discussion now instead of going back and to go do a do-over as to what happened. This is the discussion. This is what I propose. This is the basis. You agree, you don't agree, you want to propose something else. You had that letter for a month now. So what is, except coming here to tell me that I didn't do the right thing, let's do a discussion about the actual thing, about the actual North County Water District.
I never said you didn't do the right thing. I
All
said
right.
my assumption
All right.
was that
Okay.
we were
I
supposed to meet as
understand.
boards.
I take it back. Let's start a discussion that is productive. So that's what I'm asking, a productive discussion. I said what I was standing.
I'm done.
If we are going to, if we as a board decided that we want to move forward as part of the North County Water District, I want to be considered a supplier of some sort, supplemental or absolutely,
Supplemental.
yeah. Anybody
I
else?
agree, yeah, no, I was waiting for you to finish.
Yep.
I agree, and I think it's this responsible part of the mayor to investigate new opportunities for the village. I also believe that it would be the responsibility of the selling party of the commodity to propose an initial idea of a contract to be negotiated. And that's the point from which you start to meet with the parties. But the initial proposal should come from the village, and I think that the mayor initiated the correct response in looking into this proposal, and then presenting it to the board as an opportunity. Go from there. And being a supplier, I would like to see a little more than just the ability to be, partial supplier, or I would hope to be a little bit more than that. But I understand where they are with their, where
First of all, there is this contract, and second, there are some dry numbers,
Right.
which we can provide up to a specific amount of water. I mean, we might want to be more than that, but at the most, at this moment, we can provide about 1 million gallons a day, if that. Is that, anybody know? I think that's the number that I got from Chris, that's the most we can provide. Well, the district needs about 10 million gallons a day.
So supplemental, that's a key term in there, which is fine. I'd like to investigate that a little further and have them, what are they going to consider supplemental? But other than that, I think it's a great idea to, it could produce revenues for the village, and enhance their water district. It's good for both parties.
I agree with you, Jim. I mean, experts say probably within the next 10 or 20 years, the most valuable resource that's going to be sought after is fresh water. So any source right now, whether it's our reservoir or any other kind of reservoir, fresh water source should be investigated and figured out if it's a viable source to keep going. But at this point, I would think in the future, water is going to be a super resource that we're going to be needing if our reservoir can also provide a secondary backup, but also in the future be utilized as a resource. Absolutely. I just want to see this process move forward without, in the past here, there's been a lot of conflict between the water district and our village, and I just want to see it move forward productively.
And none of us was on that board. None of you were on that board. I was not the mayor. So this is a brand new, and that's the only thing I want them to know, and I want them to reconsider. We are looking at it with a fresh eye as a new opportunity, and I'm just worried that as time passes, we're gonna have Erie County Water Authority down here before we even realize it. And I don't think that's gonna be a good thing. I really don't.
So do we need to sit down as a board and write a proposal together, all
Yes.
of us? Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's the point.
We gotta do that, if
Yes.
that's what so we
Like
need to
this
make a
week.
date to do that, yes.
Now, because they turned on the water
Right.
today, the day
Right.
before yesterday. Roger?
I have no problem with you attending some of these meetings and having discussions with the North County Water District. I wish maybe one of the representatives of the board were there at some of these discussions.
There was nobody from other boards. It was Mayor
I
Rosas.
understand, but this is an issue that involves our village and a very difficult decision. Those boards and those towns and those villages have already come to the table.
Not to that table.
This is a whole
They haven't
different
discussed
opportunity.
anything with us. That was 3 people, and then, and that was it. So nothing was discussed. I don't want anybody to think that I signed paper, that
No, I'm not
put
saying-
the village, I used the village money, I proposed anything, nothing.
Right.
It was a good faith discussion as to how, as neighbors, we can work with each other to use this commodity for the good of our communities. That was it.
No, my understanding, this is not like the old agreement. This has nothing to do with that old North County Water District proposals of before. This is, we are a supplier, intended to be a supplier, not a customer. And that is the extent of it.
Supplier or backup supplier?
Well, backup supplier, wherever it goes to, into the future, but it would be an additional supplier. That's the intent. And so it has nothing to do with the old contract. It has, just kind of take that right out of your mind of where we were before. It was unreasonable cost put upon the village for such. And for this, if it goes well, the way they need the water, if they pay for the interconnect, we turn on the water, we sell them water. If it goes well.
And I don't want anybody to think that we, I approach this only for the good of the village. I think about the good of the district, the good of the whole area.
Certainly.
That's where the negotiations can come, and we can listen to their point of view, and you can listen to they can listen to ours, and come to a decision. But I would suggest that if you want to write that letter, which I would strongly suggest, that should be done in the next week or so. Would you agree, Mr. Garrett?
I do, I agree. I mean, just to clarify, because I was at the meetings, the village of Fredonia walked in there thinking that we were going to be a supplier, okay? This contract came out of nowhere at one of those meetings and said, hey, by the way, Dunkirk has exclusive rights to be the supplier for the next 40 years, so you guys are out of luck. So as a fallback position, the supplemental supplier idea came up, and so that's what's being kicked around right now. I mean, if we could come in as a full supplier, that would be fantastic. But Mayor Rosas has definitely told us that that's not his intention.
Well, he has a contract.
And he wants to protect that contract.
Yes.
And reasonably for the city of Dunkirk. It's just it cuts the village of Fredonia out. And so we're trying to now figure out, and the county executive has stated at those meetings that he does not agree with control of the water and therefore the development going to Erie County, that he wants to keep things local, and that Fredonia, he believes, is a key to that puzzle. So that's what we're trying to work through.
That's it.
When would you like to meet to
Maybe we can,
work on the letter to?
yeah, maybe we
send
can
a-
put some ideas together for Monday. Monday we'll have a workshop.
Workshop, okay.
Do you think we can do that?
I think just from a logistical standpoint, if we want to put together some terms of a proposal circulated around to the trustees, have the trustees add, delete, comment, whatever, and then that would make
I would
one of
like
these
them
meetings more
to
productive.
put their own
Absolutely.
comments.
So if we can
so-
come up with, if anybody sitting here in this room has comments, that
Sure.
would be great. You don't even have to wait till you see anything.
Okay.
Feel free to email them to us and we'll incorporate them in the original draft.
That'd be great.
It's my understanding that the proposal was calling for technical information, so I would expect that information to come from the water plant chief
Yes.
operator.
Right.
Sure.
Right,
So,
right.
and the
Okay.
trustees are not knowledgeable about
No, of
the
course not.
questions that were
Yes,
asked.
yes.
Right, the trustees' duty would be more in theory, okay, we are going to be a backup supplier, or we're gonna be a full supplier, or, you know, it's contingent upon the interconnect, or it's not contingent upon the interconnect. That's the type of proposal we're looking for. Basically, the technical information is just a written assurance that we can do whatever we propose we can do. So first we have to figure out what our proposal is.
Would Chris Surma should be a key player in all this.
Absolutely,
Yes. Yes.
absolutely, no
Has he
question.
Has he been
And he
involved
has
in
all
this
the
yet, or
information.
has he been asked to be
Yeah.
involved in this?
We have,
He will.
we have discussed it obviously with the people, and we know that we can, in several capacities, participate in this agreement, and we just need to figure out what it is we want to do.
Well, Chris needs to provide us with the requirements that, you know, these technical questions here, like Trustee Harris said, we
And I
can't.
can ask Chris to come. I can ask Chris to come. He doesn't come usually to the meetings, but I can ask him to come, or I can ask him to, you know, if you have any questions, he can answer them.
Well, could he just get a copy of this request and then come up with some ideas and theories to bring to the board for our thought and discussion on? Because, I mean, again, we don't know the potential infrastructure requirements, proposed water purchase rates, what's, you know, maybe that's a Jim question as well, too, that we need to have you look at different stuff, you know, or whatever, I don't know. So, I mean,
All right, well, let's do it this week. You know, you have Chris's email, start writing, and we can have everything together by next Monday, all the information, so we approve it, and then we can
Chris,
write the letter.
Chris could share it in the same manner as what we discussed.
All right. So let's go to the letter from the post office. That's, I assume that it's for the sidewalk?
yeah, now, that's, the trees were taken down in the right-of-way, they caused damage to the sidewalk in front of the post office. We were put on notice, is that our responsibility totally to take care of now?
The issue, and I couldn't find out for sure because the county GIS system has been down since Friday. The issue is who owns the post office. Now, my guess would be the federal government owns the post office, and they're not renting. And then it would be on the post office, just like you or me, the sidewalk in front of our place, we're responsible for. They didn't make any allegations that the village somehow damaged their sidewalk by the removal of those trees. Trees, roots happen, and just like a regular homeowner, they would be responsible for their own sidewalks.
If they're claiming an issue with the sidewalk, would, sidewalk, as far as the hazard, our code enforcement department could determine if that was considered a hazard, because there's a measurement of how high the lift of a sidewalk would be to cause an issue, correct? John? Yeah. And so if you were to look at that, then we could say, well, it's not, would not be a normal replacement for the village, even if it was the tree that caused what they're claiming to cause an issue with the sidewalk, if the tree roots or whatever, they thought it lifted it, but it is not, if it is not to the level of what the normal village replacement would be and such, then we wouldn't replace it. But if it is, then we have to determine whose responsibility it is to replace. I mean, whether it was a tree or not, or if it was who actually owns it and what portion of responsibility they have. Like when a homeowner has sidewalks to replace, they replace it and they ask for a partial reimbursement from the village.
Yeah, but
So wouldn't that be under the same?
my question was though, I mean, it was a tree in the village's right of way. Let's say a tree in the village's right of way, a big limb falls and damages the house. It's a tree that's village owned, so it would be the village's responsibility probably too.
If your question is that if a tree in the village's right-of-way, and it's exactly that, right-of-way, okay? Right-of-way, we don't have any legal responsibility, it's just a right-of-way. It's an access easement type of situation.
So we're not liable.
It's same with, you know, I can't prohibit, I'll give you an example, I can't prohibit anybody from walking down my sidewalk. I pay taxes on the sidewalk, I'm responsible for maintenance of the sidewalk, I have insurance in case somebody trips and falls on the sidewalk, but nobody has any responsibility maintenance-wise other than me. If a tree that is in a right-of-way which doesn't, you know, it still doesn't belong to us. It would belong to the record owner of the property. And if that tree, or even if our tree, that had roots that upheaved the sidewalk, it still would be the property owner's responsibility to take care of that.
Okay.
Okay.
I point out that the village code addresses this in chapter 240, section 3, duty to repair and maintain sidewalks.
Thank you.
Secondly, I was able to access Chautauqua County Geographical Information Systems. I observed the plots around Barker Common, the plots which are owned by governmental agencies or nonprofit institutions have no information in this spot, in the property information display. For residential properties and for commercial properties, that information is always given. So, the map, however, did show that the space occupied by the post office extends to Day Street. So, and there are no other properties. It's identified as being a governmental organization by the absence of any other information.
So, how would you respond to that?
Well, I mean, once we can confirm that it indeed is the federal government that owns the post office, we send them a letter back that says, look, here's our code that says you're responsible for sidewalk maintenance, be responsible.
That's it, yeah. Thank you.
So
I
let's
agree.
find out who actually owns it. All right. What is this New York State Legislative Initiative?
These are some applications I had gotten from Senator Young's office prior to, this is to help supplement any projects that we are doing currently. I spoke to her office representative, and they need to be coming in shortly, very quickly in order to be funded. So what I want to do is maybe, Jim, give these to you maybe, and if you could look at some of the projects we might need some additional funding for, we could help with funding and put some numbers on these applications so that we could at least submit those to Senator
the
Young's
deadline?
office. I'm sorry?
When is the deadline?
Susan Rowley did not say when the deadline, it's coming up very shortly. I don't know what that means. I could give her a call back and find out for sure.
What is the legislative initiative?
It's discretionary money that senators have to assist municipalities with projects that they are doing. So it's just kind of like above and beyond grants and so forth and so on.
It's kind of a grant, so it just takes it, yeah.
But if I could
If you want to take it up and see what we need.
Yep, I will find out when they're required, but I mean.
Because I got one of those applications from 2 years ago.
2 years ago we did.
For
Yeah.
the police station. It never went anywhere, actually, because it needed a lot of information that I did not have.
Okay, well, if that's something you could fill out, great. I mean, anything that we could get additional
Anything that can
funding
help,
for.
of course.
So I do have those, I'll give those to you at the end of the meeting.
Of course. Now, I really want to discuss that personnel issue before the meeting. Do you know what I'm talking about? Well, we'll have to go downstairs. This is an executive session.
We've got 5 minutes if you want to call it.
Okay. Can I have, I need to discuss personnel issue, and 5 minutes will do it. If somebody makes a motion,
We
please.
discuss after the public hearing.
I think it would be better to do it on the front end, that we can smoothly transition everything, Dr. Barres. Just because I know what she's talking about.
Should be quick.
It should be very quick.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Anybody?
Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss personnel matters.
A second?
Trustee Barris?
Aye.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Trustee Briggs? Trustee Isaac? Back in 5 minutes.
Yes.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Workshop the meeting
of the Village of Fredonia duly called and held on the 10th day of September 2018 at 7:41 in the Trustees' Room, 2nd floor, Village Hall, Fredonia, New York, and public notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given to the news media and conspicuously posted in one or more designated public locations in accordance with Section 104 of the Open Meetings Law. We're going to do things a little differently tonight, and from now on. I decided to put the public portion in the beginning, and this is the public portion which I will ask respectfully to not touch on the public hearing. So for anything else, is there anybody who wants to talk and address the board?
Before you do that, I'd like to make a motion for Trustee Barris to be responsible today for
Correct.
taking the minutes of the meeting.
Thank you, Jim.
Anybody second the motion?
I'll second.
Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee
Aye.
Trustee Bridge?
Yes.
Trustee Essek?
Yes.
All right, so go back to public portion. Yes.
I'm Reverend Cynthia Wickmore-Lundquist from the Fredonia Presbyterian Church, and I'm asking for the board to consider once again endorsing the Feeding Fredonia Challenge. This will be the 5th year, and so we're planning the challenge for October 15th to the 19th, and this would be our Feeding Fredonia 2018, hoping that you are willing to endorse that effort. As we notify local businesses, it is obviously important that we can share the information of your endorsement.
Thank you very much. Good luck with that. Doing a great job. Thank you. Anybody else? Nobody, so we close the public. Yes?
I'm confused already. Are we talking about the law?
No.
Or is this an open meeting? Okay.
All right. All right, so we close the public portion. For my report, I'm going to talk tonight about this, the reason you are here tonight, all of you. I received many messages over the past week, mostly, a few days, even more. Some people came and talked to me. We had a good conversation, so I really want to address it a little bit. So how we started? I put this committee together. I put a committee of 7 people together with 3 things in mind. First of all, to make sure that the character of our neighborhoods is preserved. Number 2, that the living conditions in our rentals are the kind of, don't put any kind of negative, in any negative way, influence, let's say, the lives of the people who live there, their health, their welfare. And number 3, I wanted to protect the property values of everyone in the village of Fredonia. So with this in mind, I put this committee together, and the committee had 7 people. The chief of the police, the chief code enforcement officer, 1 member of the planning board, 2 trustees, our attorney, and myself. We met about 5 times, if I'm correct, maybe even 6. We heavily researched every other municipality that has the same kind of demographics and have a lot of rentals. By no means we reinvented any kind of wills. We just took the will and personalized it, made it special for the village. So this is what we did. And then after we finished with that, we gave our recommendations to the planning board, The planning board worked through it, came with a new law, which is an amendment to what we had, went to our attorney, and here is where we are. I know there are questions, I know there are challenges, and I know there are concerns. To me came mostly 3 questions, and I want to address all of them. Actually, I'm going to ask our attorney to address the 2, and then I'm going to address the other one. One is the registration, the registry, and the second is the notice of the information of the landlord being easily accessible. And by the way, nobody asked to put it on the foyer, on the outside of the house, on any kind of flag, nothing. In the house, just in a place where it can be easily accessible. That was the end of it, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Can you please answer these 2 questions? They have, the problem is how can we collect information of the people who, the tenants, and second, why we need to have the landlord's information easily available.
To begin, the village has a compelling governmental interest in collecting this information. It's not an invasion of privacy or anything. Landlords are availing themselves of doing business in the village of Fredonia. They're making money by renting properties in the village of Fredonia. Many businesses are required to have display certificates. If you go get your haircut, you see their certificate. If you go to the garage, you see their certificate. This is no different than any other commercial enterprise having to provide proof of compliance with the local codes. Right? In terms of the gathering of that information and the compelling governmental purpose for that, we're dealing with 2 situations, or attempting to deal with 2 situations. The first one is from a code enforcement perspective. There's a violation, but the landlord lives in Florida, and there's a ball that goes around, and it's constantly trying to tag the person who is legally responsible for the property. Gathering this information and making the landlords provide that is not only reasonable, but allows our code enforcement officer to be more effective at his job, which is to keep the village of Fredonia not only safe, but looking good. As far as the tenant information, that's more of a law enforcement purpose in that, you know, the police are called to a loud noise complaint at one of these college apartments. There's 50 kids there. Who's supposed to be there? Who's supposed to not be there? Who's responsible for this property? Everybody kind of looks at each other and runs away. All right? So this allows our law enforcement to be more effective in that they know not only who's supposed to be there, but who's on the lease and who they should be talking to. So it's not like we're digging into anybody's life. We're not looking to telemarket anybody by this information. What we're looking to do is make our code enforcement, our law enforcement more effective to enforce that the laws that are on the books right now.
Thank you. And I want to say something else. Most of our landlords are law-abiding citizens. They do what they're supposed to do. They're responsible. They clean the house. They follow the law in every way. There are some, however, who are a problem. And I'm going to say this. We don't want the village to become a place where everything goes. We don't want people to come here, buy an apartment, buy a house, buy a property, forget about it totally, live in Australia. We have people who live in Australia, actually, and own properties here. That's fine. They can make money. However, we have laws, we have code. Everything has to be followed. At the same time, we don't want to have tenants here who come and trust places, and they have no respect for the neighborhoods. They have no respect for the village. They do just whatever they like. So these 2 situations, and they are the exceptions mostly, but that's why the law exists for the exception. I know most of the people are law-abiding citizens. I'm perfectly fine with that. This is mostly for the people who don't. And none of us wants to have a rental house where drugs are getting produced and sold. This gives our the law enforcement officers and the code enforcement officer the tools they need, so your houses, our houses, are safe, and our community is safe. Now, I want to address the last point, and I apologize because I just found out that people who called me, like Ben, you were right. Actually, the section 179.82 says here, if property falls out of compliance with a chapter or any other code, the tenant may have the right to withhold the rent till property is back into compliance. I don't agree with that. I never thought this was going to be there. Actually, and I talked with the attorney over the weekend, and we came up with a new phrase, which maybe the board can consider. And it's going to say, if the property falls out of compliance
Mayor,
with this...
if you would, I did, before you read that,
Yeah.
I did have a chance to discuss this with the code enforcement officer. There is some language that I think we should use instead of what I sent you. Just a little bit of tweaks. You have to forgive us. We're doing this for the first time. We're trying to make things better, and you know, it's a learning curve. It's a work in progress. But Mayor, if I might jump
Sure.
right into it. There were some concerns. The mayor listened to the concerns. She brought this to me. I agreed with her that what was drafted was overly broad, possibly unenforceable, and just made the waters muddy between the landlord and the tenant. All right. So what we would propose is striking that section of the proposed local law, and instead inserting, if a property falls out of compliance, so that the certificate of compliance is revoked, the landlord shall not collect any rents until the property is brought back into compliance. Now, a couple things that make that different from what was originally proposed. First of all, the certificate of compliance is something that's existed in this village for years. Right? This is nothing new. This is no new requirement. What this is the ability of the code enforcement officer, having already issued the violation notice, having already given time for compliance, to basically cite the landlord if the certificate of compliance has been revoked for accepting rents during that process. It's not up to the tenant to hold the rents. I mean, tenants under the common law can withhold rents, you know, because of problems and things. It's not the village's business to get into that. That's a civil matter between the tenants and the landlords. All we're doing is putting some additional teeth in the idea that if you come out of compliance and your certificate of compliance is revoked, and just because you've got a violation, you know, the code enforcement officer is not going to take your certificate of compliance away because your grass is long. They're not going to do it because, you know, you put out your garbage 3 days early. We're talking about problem landlords that right now have a position where their property is not in compliance because of the way that the system works, the notices, the additional notices, the re-inspections. Basically, you can have a situation where a property is not in compliance for a year, and then when we do get them finally to court, you know, the fine is minimal to the point where it's only good business to keep doing that rather than to come into compliance. This is not a new thing, okay, in that the certificate of compliance in this village has existed for some time. All we're saying is if your certificate is revoked, in addition to all the other cases, in addition to whatever the initial violation was, in addition to the non-compliance violation, you could, landlord, potentially pick up an additional violation, and that's exactly what it would be, for accepting rents for a property which is out of compliance. This is very similar to the law in the city of Buffalo. This is nothing particularly new. Theoretically, if the code enforcement officer removed your occupancy certificate, it would be illegal to have anybody living in the house at all. So it's kind of a halfway between anything goes, where we are now, and revoking the certificate of occupancy, meaning everybody, including the tenant, has to vacate. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So this is what I wanted to say. I just wanted to make sure that, I mean, people came to me and said that they're afraid to talk, that they're targeted. No, nobody's targeted. Nobody should be afraid to talk. This is open for everybody to come and talk to us. We're not saying that everything is perfect. Maybe this law is not perfect. Maybe this code is not perfect. Well, help us do it. Somehow we have to go from what it is right now to what we want it to be. We want a village where the property values don't go down, they go up. We want a village where we're going to attract the right kind of tenants. Not the tenants who are going to come here because they're cheap, because they don't care, because they're going to trust places, because they're going to be to do everything that we don't want them to be. None of us wants to live in a place like that, and I just want you really to understand and accept the fact that this is the reason we did all that. So that's my report. Trustees. Mr. Esek.
I'd first like to congratulate everybody who participated and planned or played in the Red, White, and Blues festival that we had currently this last weekend in our parks. My wife and I attended, and we caught up with a few friends, and it was a great event in our park, so many thanks to all those who were involved. Just real quickly, we weren't able to discuss anything during our agenda. Just during the meeting, we have we passed a resolution a while back on meeting procedures. Once a resolution has been proposed and seconded, each trustee shall be given the opportunity to publicly state their position regarding the proposed resolution. Once all trustees in attendance have had the opportunity to be heard, a roll call will be conducted. I guess what I'm saying is to follow that, sort of like the Robert's Rules of Orders. There's a motion, a second, and is there any discussion? Because in the past, there wasn't any discussion. We just, seconded and moved into the vote.
It's not a discussion, it's your opportunity to exactly say why you vote in one way or the other.
That's correct.
Yes, and that's fine, yes.
Thank you,
I agree
that's all.
with that. Roger?
The only report I'd like to put out tonight is I'd like to welcome Tony Gugino, his first week on duty. I don't know if he's still with us today.
He's hiding out back.
He's hiding out back. He had a pretty rough first week, but
Yeah, I see his hand.
well, welcome Tony on board as our DPW supervisor, and he's done a real good job getting the troops together, and they've done some improvements in our one of our parking lots just recently.
Yes,
and
very good job.
I'm going to be meeting with Tony probably every Monday morning to kind of go over some other things that we need done in the village and go forward.
Great. And you can give us a report. Christina.
Reports today.
Trustee Christina.
Yes, I am going to talk a little bit about the Cable Advisory Board, and several of the members are here. I'd first of all like to recommend them. They work tirelessly at a sometimes very frustrating job negotiating our cable contract. So I'd like to say Marcia Marins is here. She's the chair. She's in charge. John McCune, Alex Wylazinski is here. Michelle Twitchell was here, if she's still here. Sam Kaiser, Chip Rewelt, who does such a good job for us, and Dave Friedman. Did I get everybody? Okay. They meet once a month, and we have lots of new equipment, thanks to them and their research and purchasing lots of new equipment that was sorely needed because it had been a long time before they had any money in their budget to get anything. So thank you to the trustees for approving a budget where we could all get some new equipment. One of the big issues is negotiating the cable contract. And we have been at a standstill and are at a standstill because of issues with Spectrum Charter, and they have been basically told by the state of New York that they are not allowed to continue negotiations or do business in the state of New York anymore. So that puts us at a real disadvantage. And one of the things that they are asking us to do is to consider putting forward an RFP and looking for a different cable provider. So that's something that I would like us to consider and discuss. And would you like to speak to that?
I'd basically just like to say that Spectrum being told that they have to vacate the state was actually really welcome news for us, because they have proven to be even more difficult to deal with than they are as a customer. So we weren't really getting anywhere with negotiations that, to any point that we felt was good for the village. So time to find somebody new.
Well, there's been a little news that I read.
Yeah.
the state has softened a little bit and giving them till October 6th to create a proposal. It's a very popular word here. Create a proposal for providing the high-speed internet that they said they would throughout the state. Their negotiator is very hostile and very difficult to work with. And with the attorney's suggestion, we are here to request that the village go through whatever legal pathways to put out a request for proposals for other cable companies to provide service to Fredonia. And we'll see what happens. If they leave, somebody will fill the void, but while they're here, we can maybe jiggle them a little bit to be a little more forthcoming. And the other thing I wanted to do is thank this board and thank Kara for being supportive of the advisory board. We have no power. That's what we're here to do, is to advise you and to hope that you continue to be supportive of local access in this community. We are very unique in New York State, actually. We have a great local access coordinator, and we provide a lovely little window on your TV for this wonderful village that we love. So thank you very much.
And one more thing that's worth mentioning, another plus to doing an RFP is that our contract with Spectrum is not exclusive. So by submitting an RFP, we might just be introducing some competition, which could be good if anyone's interested in coming to the village.
Thank you for letting us, did you want to say anything? Thank you for letting us address you at a very busy night, I know. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, my pleasure. So can we write the RFP? I mean, how can we do that?
We can look into it, Mayor. That's definitely something we can work on. We're going to need some little bit of research to put that together.
Or a lot, yeah, I have no idea. Okay, very good, thank you. Dr. Barris?
Yes.
Any kind of report?
Sorry? I have nothing to report.
Okay. All right. No report?
No report, Mayor.
Okay. So this being the time and place for the public hearing on proposed local law number 3-2018 to amend Chapter 179 of the Fredonia Village Code entitled Housing Standards, Proof of Publication Zone. I have a proof here to show you. I had the proof, yes. Right there. Do I have to bring it? It's downstairs probably.
No, Mayor,
No,
we
I
have
have
it.
it here. Here. Now, this is not a debate, but rather a place and a time for the public to be heard. I call the public hearing to order. Anybody, please, can take up to 3 minutes to say, to ask questions or to say your opinion or your concern. Yes, sir.
First thing I'd like to say that I think it's for a board that discusses everything, to hold a landlord committee without a landlord on it is pretty much a travesty of what's going on here. If we do have one landlord, that's great, but I think it's pretty ridiculous that we weren't consulted on this with the number that we have in the area. Second thing is, if we're strictly targeting student housing, I think that's discriminatory. If you're asking for them to supply their birth dates and names, when quite frankly we have several other facilities in this area that are rental units that probably would get much more in the way of police and ambulance and fire calls. For example, the trailer parks, Fredonia Place, which I can guarantee you has more service calls than probably all of the landlord units in this area. I mean, it's if you want to pass it for everybody, pass it for everybody. Include everybody. If you're talking about rentals, Campus Edge Apartments, Birchwood Apartments, Middlesex Apartments, and let's call Fredonia State on this, for the matter of fact. You're saying that we can't have 2 students in a certain size room. Fredonia State has 2 students in rooms smaller than closets that I'm renting out. It's ridiculous. If we have to have our units inspected, and they don't, because they're whatever, that's ridiculous. And if you think that it's just going to be okay to do students, that's totally discriminatory. Now, if you want to do everybody in the village, let's go for it. But everybody's going to have to do the same rules, same rights. And quite frankly, you're going to have to hire 3 more inspectors and 6 more people to do the paperwork. It's not going to happen. I don't know anybody in this village that thinks that the current building inspector, who I'm sure does a wonderful job, I've met with him several times over the last however many years, and every year my units are inspected. I don't know how, any way, shape, or form, he could possibly cover all the rentals in this unit. This town has so many rentals that aren't even classified as rentals, whether they're 1 family, 2 family, 3 family, 6 family, or whatnot. Maybe you can speak to this. When was the last time you inspected any of the trailer units up in any of the areas here? When was the last time you inspected anything on Fredonia State, any of the Birchwood apartments, the Middlesex apartments, any of those places? But yet, we're held to a higher standard because we rent college apartments. And quite frankly, my college apartments are nicer than the houses I live in. They've got new roofs, new windows, new siding. They're taken care of better than actually where I live, and I take nice care of my house. So quite frankly, I think we're discriminating against college housing and college students. And quite frankly, the American Civil Liberties Union might have a big giant offense with us supplying birth dates and names for everybody that lives in one of these units, because quite frankly, in New York State, the only ones that are required to do that are sex offenders. So we're going to register our students the same way we register sex offenders? That's absolutely asinine.
Thank you.
They can't hear alcohol. Well, at the end they could because he elevated. But it's a wireless mic. Could we possibly
have him come?
Yeah, we can work on that.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have him come to the mic then.
So that's fine.
You can hand this around to whoever would like to speak.
Yeah. Why don't you, hold on. Give me a second.
You can use that one?
Yeah.
Chip, it's the next one over. This one, I can see me.
Check.
There it is. All right, who's next? You're next.
Hi, my question is with...
State your name, please.
My name's Mike Hodkin.
Can you please say, yeah.
It's not working yet, so.
Yeah, there you go.
Go ahead.
Hello. My name's Mike Hodkin. I have some property here in the village, and I am a village police officer, so I know the other end of it. My question is, if there was 7 people on the committee and you met 5 times or more, and it was approved enough to be printed on paper, and there was one landlord on the committee, and how 7 months went by when you guys were investigating this, and it took us about 2 days to come up with the violation that he mentioned earlier. Don't you think that maybe this should be tabled and reinvestigated? Because I think there's other things in here that are also not correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
Heather Montgomery. And I saw in the paper that about gutters and the code enforcement for gutters. I just have a question if that will, be discussed here, because we just took our gutters down this last spring because of, the snow and stuff. So I'm like, am I going to be forced to put all new gutters up now, or?
Right.
I don't know if that's a topic for here or because I saw it in the paper that it was with this.
Well, as I said, it's not going to be discussion, so we will collect your questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Ben Kravitz. I'm also a landlord here in Fredonia. I am also a police officer. I have several different concerns, and I did speak with the mayor about it. We had a very good conversation. After voicing some of my concerns, I talked to a well-known attorney, and he did give me permission. He wrote some questions that he had, And so I'm going to read those to you. I'm John Gullo. I live in the village of Fredonia. I do not own any rental units at this time, but I proudly represent a few of Fredonia's best landlords. I am not here specifically on behalf of any of them. I have 9 short points that I'd like to make. Point 1, how many existing structures are affected by the new square footage rules found in 179-11A? How many existing rental units are, and how many non-rental structures that might later be used as rentals? Are existing structures grandfathered? Point number 2, the landlord and tenant registration provisions requires a public filing of names and dates of birth of tenants. I suspect that this is an impermissible invasion of privacy, but I think it's worth asking about what protections will be taken with that confidential information. Point number 3, are we going to require the names, addresses, and dates of birth of all other persons living in the village? Why only tenants? Since tenants are generally either university students or lower income persons, is the village illegally requiring registration of those considered outsiders or poor? Seems pretty outrageous when one puts it that way. Number 4, the proposed law imposes a very creative sanction on landlords by giving the right to tenants to withhold rent. I would argue that this is an unconstitutional and illegal interference with a private contract. Beyond that, this creates a nightmare for all landlords where an allegation of noncompliance is used to justify non-payment. Point number 5, has the village secured a legal opinion that indicates that this law will pass a court challenge? Are we subjecting ourselves to the cost of future litigation? Is it worth it? Point number 6, Section 17992 has multiple language problems that will render it ineffective and unconstitutional regardless of any other consideration. Point number 7, the village of Fredonia should be taking all reasonable steps to support landlords and make their properties more valuable. New laws that harm property owners will never be the answer to the problems. Point number 8, the village of Fredonia should be taking all reasonable steps to welcome university students and make them feel comfortable. New laws that discriminate against students will never be the answer to our problems. Point number 9, we have plenty of laws, both local and state, to protect tenants, and plenty of others that require upkeep of properties and that protect neighbors from bad behavior from landlords and tenants. What we don't have is the staffing to enforce these laws. If you're serious about rental property conditions, increase the budget line for that code enforcement office. If you're serious about protecting neighborhoods from bad tenants, increase the police budget. More laws without proper enforcement will never accomplish your goals. Thank you for your service to our village. Respectfully submitted, John P. Gullo II.
Thank you. Right. Anybody else? Yes. Yes, sir.
Before I talk about being a landlord, the upgrade with the amplification is great. I'm telling you. In fact, I just had a conversation with my neighbor, Trustee Britz. A couple days ago, I said, Roger, you guys need amplification. He said, okay. I come to this meeting and bam, here it is. The guy's powerful. It's tremendous stuff going on. A couple comments over there about targeting student landlords, student housing. Is that the case here, or this applies to everything, doesn't it? Okay, but the language is aimed squarely at student landlords. The language in writing and the comments made by your attorney and you, talking about being a village where anything goes, I think you're talking about the temporary insanity that occurs every year in the festival that was formerly known as Fredonia Fest. I mean, that's one of the things I think that has prompted this. My concern is that, and it's been expressed well by the others, it seems to be an impossibility based on the staff you have now to be able to enforce this broadly with every rental property in the village, student rental or not. I think, I could be wrong, but I think the non-student rental units outnumber the student rental units in the village if you exclude the thing on the corner of Brigham and Temple. So you're going to have your hands full. You're going to need a budget that's a whole lot bigger than you got now. And I really doubt that, that the registration of names and ages with some central database in the village is going to pass muster, especially legal muster, as Mr. Gullo expressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Anybody out here want to talk? Hello, Bill. Come on forward, all in.
Hi, Rick Donovan. I'm a landlord in town here. Question, because I'm not sure I understand it. Are you going to vote tonight on this law? Yes or no? That type, I mean, is that what your plan is, possibly?
Well, my plan is to ask the board to table it for a specific reason, not for the generality of the law,
Okay.
but for a specific reason.
Okay, well, I'm still going to read my question anyway then, but I'm glad you're not, at least you think you're not voting on it tonight. If this is a work in progress, this law, I think the village attorney said that earlier, then I would be wondering why you were voting on a law that is still in such a state of flux. So that was my comment.
Thank you.
If it's still a work in progress, why are you even voting on it? Maybe you need more input. Okay.
Anybody else?
I just want to, my name is Russ, can I present this to the attorney? Let him read this? Wait for the village code. Those two things, I want to read those.
No, just the top, if you'd
Oh,
like to talk.
I am.
If you'd like to talk.
I don't like to talk.
Yeah, that's
Well,
all right. Me neither.
Well, I guess the Fourth Amendment is the right of people to secure their personal houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but the probable cause supported by oath for permission and particularly describing the place to be searched of persons or things. And this I got from Larry Barter. With the noise ordinance, when there's anybody that's at the place is in violation, no matter if the owner's there or not. They could get fined, no matter if they live there or not. So that'll take care of that. It's already on the books. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, my name is Rick Bergstrom. I'm a landlord. I have a little bit different situation. I have a situation right now where I have a family of 5, actually 6, excuse me. There's a mother and a father, 3 girls and 1 boy. By your definition, I have to tell them to move. They've been in this residence for over 10 years. Because they're a family. How many family rentals are there in Fredonia right now? But I have 3 children that will be living in 1 room. They have plenty of room in there, but the room is not of the size where it makes it all the way down to over 130 square feet. They choose to live in that room. They have 2 bunk beds, a set of bunk beds, and another bed. It's adequate. They're going to keep the apartment clean. They keep it in good repair. I don't have a problem with them. But this law will require me to tell them they have to move. This apartment will not be big enough for them to do it. Where are there more family rentals in Fredonia? Fredonia's problem with education, with their school right now, is that their declining enrollment is based on the fact that there's no family rentals. We get calls constantly for family rentals, and they're not there. They were all converted to college rentals. Well, that doesn't help the family rental situation, and this law is going to make it even worse. Because now that apartment, I have to turn it into a college rental. So you're doing just the opposite of what you wanted to do by passing this and forcing me to make sure that that room has to be more than 130 square feet because they have 3 children. 2 of them are twins. They're small. They don't need 130 square feet.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Mike Pucci. Just wanted to go over a few things that I thought might be helpful. I actually think you're doing a good job. I think there are some other ways we can go about some of the things that we have on the plate right now. One of them is in a C1 district right now, we have to get inspected once a year. Is that correct, Chuck? I don't really see a reason for that. So that is one way we can save some time and money. The other is, I think we should put a lot of our attention on the places that aren't registered. You know, that is more where our places should be. And I understand that that's what the idea here is behind, but that's where I see the major issues here. Okay? Not the people who have been inspected. I know, we're on the same page, I think. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Whoever it is has to come in. Come inside.
My name is Harold Whitford. My office is at 853 2nd in Jamestown. I am a landlord. I'm a property manager of properties in Jamestown, Fredonia, and several other towns in Chautauqua County. I've been a licensed real estate salesman since 1985, a licensed real estate broker since 1996. I'm a licensed professional property manager with my New York State real estate broker's license, and I have been involved in owning or professionally managing properties for 45 years. I'm the president of the Jamestown Real Estate Investors Association, which has over 80 members. I'm here tonight because I'm concerned with a proposal of changing your code regarding rental properties here in Fredonia. I have heard some of the things I'm going to say already mentioned. I apologize for the duplicating. Just what does Fredonia want to accomplish as the outcome of these changes? What expertise did the members of the committee that wrote these changes have? Was there any consulting of experts in the field? Reading some of the language, I'm not so sure. I have a few issues with what's being proposed here. First is the violation of privacy. The statement that all tenants' names and ages must be supplied to the town and that the names and ages will be given to the police department. This, as I heard earlier, mimics the protocol used for the New York State Sex Offender Registry, and I believe this to be a violation of the laws governing privacy, HIPAA laws. I'm sure the landlord, him or herself, would not mind the town having their name and or phone number and address, of which all this information is available, public information on the county site, except for the phone numbers. And if applicable, the licensed property manager contact information. There would be no problem with the police and Fredonia knowing this information. Having this information available to the tenant and town, it's not an issue. Tenants really ought to know who to call. But posting on the outside of the building, which I heard corrected tonight was not on the outside, that was just not a good idea. And obviously somebody realized that. Secondly, I have heard rumblings that the college is trying to get more students on campus, build more dorms, etc. Is that where this information is going to go? It's common practice for government to have it accidentally fall in the wrong hands. Everybody knows that. Where the students live should be the student's choice. If the college wants to do a survey of where they live, let them do their own study, not with the government's help with these code changes. Thirdly, it is discrimination of owners who live outside the three counties you mentioned, Chautauqua, Erie, and Cattaraugus counties. If they live outside that area, at that point they must have a manager, is what your new code says. How can you say that a person who lives in a different place, such as Erie, PA, cannot take care of his or her property? How do you know what makes them a worse landlord than someone who may even live in town? What qualifies this? The guy who lives in Erie, PA may visit the property every week. He may do his own repairs. He may be all over the house. Where the local guy may simply not care or be capable and lets things go. You cannot discriminate based on that. How is that being fair? Again, it's a violation of our rights. And fourth, the statement saying that the tenant may hold rent for non-compliance of code, which again I heard addressed tonight, thank goodness. There's no mention of non-bias of third party holding the funds, inasmuch as I've heard with the tenant names and ages listed as tenants being supplied to the town, that they, the town, will go to the tenants and tell them if the building's in non-compliance and advise them not to pay rent if the landlord falls out of compliance. This will cause all-out mutiny of rental, non-payment, and total chaos. The tenant could cause damage, thereby creating a code violation to purposely not pay rent. Who determines how or why there's a code violation? The sentence is not paying rent for any code violation is totally unexplained in this proposed code change. There are certain acts of non-compliance that are health and safety issues. However, the instruction of what they are and how to legally withhold rent appear to be purposely missing. It is the case of very poor advice and could result in a lawsuit being filed to the writers of the code for such a far-fetched statement that alludes to breaking the landlord-tenant laws as governed by New York State, which read, "What justifies tenants paying less rent in New York? Before you can withhold rent or use the repair and deduct remedy, make sure that the circumstances justify you paying less rent and that you comply with state legal requirements on things like notice you must provide to your landlord. Check New York State law."
Sir, thank you. You're way over 3 minutes. There are other people here.
Don't
Thank
like
you
what you hear?
very much. Well, you can submit everything in writing. That 3 minutes was for everybody.
Let's finish it for him.
Here we go. I will turn the mic over to my partner, Brenda Strasser, 3 minutes.
My name is Brenda Strasser, and I am a landlord in the city of Jamestown. I also help Harold Whitford manage properties all over the county. For your protection, to protect from landlord retaliation and termination of notice or rent increase and exercising the legal right to pay less rent because of the habitability problems or any other condition. Therefore, you can withhold rent, deduct rent, such as requirement that you pay rent into an escrow account. In other words, what they're saying is if you find your landlord in violation, that you must put in a third-party, non-biased escrow. All of this being said, I urge you not to pass this controversial code tonight and any time without further and proper research. We can be of assistance to your board committee and we'll be happy to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And here. If it's here. My name is Raleigh Hawk, and I'm a property manager here in Fredonia. I really do feel like the landlords and property managers in Fredonia keep getting put on a tighter and tighter leash. I've got a case where I have tenants that have refused to pay for 2 to 3 months, and we only have one court date in the month to be able to try to evict them. It was over by like 2 days, and I've got to wait another month to try to get them out of there. I know that's not what we're talking about tonight, but I really do feel like there should be more landlord representation on these boards that are helping to create these laws. Even if we don't have that with people on the board, I think that there could be people that could come in as advisors to try to help write this code so that it's not so stifling for landlords and property managers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anybody else? No?
Anybody else?
Nobody else? All right, so if that's it, we close the public hearing. I thank you very much for your comments. The only thing I have to say is that who out of all of you will be the committee? I'm sure all of you. So yes, I know. That's the point. 25, 30, 35. This is the point of this meeting. This is the point of this hearing. It's not, we're doing everything openly. There is nothing behind closed doors. That's why the law is out there. That's why you can come here and talk about it. There is nothing ridiculous about it. We put a lot of work. The planning board put even more work in there. And there are some landlords in the planning board. That's the nature of the thing. So if we have some small mistakes, yes, we can fix them. And I understand most of you are the good guys. However, there are situations where, as our attorney said, somebody calls at night and this is a big party going on, and maybe it's not particularly because there are students, somebody else. So they knock on the door. Brad is here, he can tell you. Knock on the door, they open the door, who lives here? Nobody. None of them lives there. So you, as a landlord, should know that. I don't think there's any invasion of property, of privacy. And in any case, I would go to our attorney for that. But thank you for your comments. I will ask actually the board to table the law on that premise, because I don't think that the tenants should withdraw anything or withheld anything, any money. I think we can discuss that if you have any other considerations. And by no means we are giving anything to the college. I don't know how you came up with that idea. None. Actually, I'm here to tell you that I'm against students living in college, living in the dorms after the second year. I would prefer only 1 year. Well, it's not up to me. I want the students to live in the village. I want the students to feel welcome. Of course I do. I want the landlords to have the best possibility to make money. Of course I do. At the same time, as I said, I don't want this village to be known as everything goes. It's Fredonia, nobody cares. Well, I'm sorry, I cannot say that I go for that. So please, if you have anything else, you can submit everything in writing, and I will give everything to the board.
Can I ask a quick question, Dan? If we table this local law, do we have to hold another public hearing if we change?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, and so what I would advise the board, you know, given what's been discussed and any changes you guys would like to make, I would advise not calling for a public hearing on my proposed change, that just table the vote completely, and we can address any future public hearings at that time after we figure out what we want to do.
I'm going to make a motion to table the resolution for local law number 3-2018 for the purpose of amending various sections of the proposed local law amendment, and to hold a public hearing for said amendment to be held at the next regular meeting of the village board.
Just mix that part.
No?
Let's just table the vote,
Just
and then
plain-
we can figure
just-
out what we need to do, because we don't have anything at this point that we can introduce for a hearing at the next meeting. So let's just table the vote, if that's what the board would like.
And we have to schedule a whole nother hearing then.
That's
at
correct.
once.
That's correct. We're going to need another hearing because of the change.
Then I make a motion to table the resolution for vote.
So the board
Table.
wants to change small things?
I second the resolution.
All right, I have to go over vote. So trustee Barris.
Aye.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Christina has to abstain. Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essen.
Yes.
All right, so we table it. No. Then go to reports. We have, the fire department report. Can you please? The Fredonia Fire Department report is the head 3-5. Can I have your attention? Thank you. 3 fire incidents, 111 rescue and EMS, 12 hazardous conditions, no fires, 2 service calls, 20 good intent, 20 false alarm, and overall 168 incidents. And then we have the justice report, justice court.
Can't close the doors.
Ask them to leave if they can't be quiet.
Thank you.
So the justice court has 67 vehicle and traffic, 30 criminal cases, 7 village ordinances, 6 civil cases, 2 ABC laws, and a total 112, for a total of $8,437. Correspondence was received from Darren B. Paskey, principal of Fredonia High School, requesting permission to hold a homecoming parade Friday, October the 5th, 2018, commencing in front of the Village Hall at 6:30 p.m. and proceeding through Park Place and up West Main Street to the Orange Bowl football field.
Be it resolved that the request of Darren B. Paskey, principal of Fredonia High School, to hold a homecoming parade commencing in front of Village Hall, Church Street, proceeding through Park Place, up West Main Street, and ending at the Orange Bowl football field on Friday, October 5th, 2018, beginning at 6:30 p.m. per his letter received August 17th, 2018, is hereby approved, subject to the discretion of the Fredonia Police Department and the approval of the New York State Department of Transportation.
I second that.
Trustee Barris.
I vote aye.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
All right, let's go to resolutions. We have to table. I will ask for a motion to table the PPD agreement.
I make a motion to table that resolution.
I'll second it.
Okay, Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas the Fredonia Emergency Medical Services Department has a number of delinquent accounts for transportation services, and whereas Accounts Advocate Agency Incorporated has offered to provide collection services based on a sliding scale contingency fee schedule, and whereas Accounts Advocate Agency Incorporated is properly licensed, bonded, and has specially trained staff to lawfully conduct collection matters, and whereas the professional services offered are specifically exempted from the bidding process pursuant to Section 6A of the village's procurement policy, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to enter into an agreement with Accounts Advocate Agency Incorporated for collection services.
I second that.
Trustee Barris.
Aye.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
Whereas the Village of Fredonia owns and operates a trolley under its Parks and Recreation Department, and whereas the trolley is to be used for the purpose of providing transportation and enjoyment to the community, and whereas the Village of Fredonia has determined that a policy concerning the operation of the trolley program would be in the best interest of the village, now therefore be it resolved that the village trolley policy is adopted as follows. 1, the Village of Fredonia will administer the trolley program. An administration group will include the following: up to 2 trustees assigned by the mayor, the village Parks and Recreation Director, and Town of Pomfret Historian. 2, aspects of administration shall include but are not limited to storage, insurance, registration requirements, assignment of drivers, maintenance, scheduling, finance. All events will provide reports of donations. Number 3, the trolley may be used for village-sponsored fundraisers, historic tours of the village, rides on Wednesdays from 6 to 8, rides at festivals within the village, rides at concerts held in Barker Common, special events, wine tours, dinner tours, etc. Any other uses pre-approved by the board subject to the following. The trolley shall not be rented, although donations to offset the cost of the trolley program may be accepted. The trolley shall not be used for weddings. Drivers shall be volunteers. A license check will be conducted by village police. Training regarding the driving of the trolley shall be required. Drivers with a total number of occupants, including the driver up to 14, shall only be required to possess a standard Class D license. If more than 14 total occupants, the driver shall possess a commercial driver's license. Trolley program coordinator. A coordinator will be assigned by the Parks and Recreation Department head and village trustees assigned to the administration group. The coordinator shall be responsible for the overall operations of the trolley program.
Second that motion.
Trustee Barris.
I vote no.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Dr. Barris, do you want to comment on your vote?
Yeah, I don't believe that the village should require volunteers to do any service for the village. I believe that people should be paid to do work.
Very well. Thank you. Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Under section 4, drivers, number 4, where it says that the driver shall possess a commercial driver's license, I believe they need to have a passenger endorsement on that.
I don't know if we should check into that. I don't think just a commercial driver's license.
I don't know. I thought we had that from the original text that you guys put together. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
That's why I was basing it back.
A CDL license requires a passenger endorsement. Say a school bus driver or something like that has to have a CDL with a passenger endorsement. So again, you're talking about passengers with more than 14 occupants on the vehicle at one time. We may have to add that with a passenger endorsement with a CDL.
Sure. It's a policy, not a local law, so we can, if we find out, maybe you can pass it tonight, and if we find out that's the case, we can easily add it later.
That's all. I just wanted to bring that point out. Okay. I will say it. Yes.
Good, thank you.
Trustee Essex.
Yes.
Whereas CGI Communications has proposed to provide a video tour of the Village of Fredonia, which will appear on the village's website, and whereas effective and professional marketing of the village is essential for economic development, and whereas CGI Communications has proposed to provide their services at no cost to the village for a 3-year period, now therefore be it resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to sign any and all necessary documents in order to effectuate the agreement.
I'll second that.
Trustee Barris.
No.
You want to explain your vote?
Yeah. I don't think that the CGI Communications material that was demonstrated for Brockport is of appropriate quality. I think we need a more satisfactory arrangement if we're going to do this. Secondly, this involves the activity of the village employees. It requires activity on the part of the village trustees in terms of processing this information. I think there's a negative balance.
Thank you.
Okay?
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essex.
Yes.
Okay. And have one more.
Be it resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized to sign a waiver on the 30-day liquor license notice for J.P. Coughlin Incorporated, 47 West Main Street, Fredonia, New York.
I second that.
Trustee Barris.
I abstain.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essex.
Before I vote here, I just have a quick question, comment. Are we going to be doing this for every business that renews their license? Is this going to be a standard practice?
I understand it was a standard for the village.
Oh, was it? Okay, I didn't know.
I didn't know either. That's what I was told.
Okay.
So I didn't,
if
you wanted to look into it.
Yes. I vote yes.
Sure. So you vote yes. Okay. So.
We have 2 more.
Yes, the other one, please.
Oh, yes.
Trustee Barris.
Whereas the area of 10 Carroll Avenue has reportedly experienced drainage issues, and whereas the village believes that following further inspection, possible measures may be found both necessary and reasonable to alleviate said drainage issues, and whereas in order to perform said inspection and measures, the village may be required to enter certain properties in the area of 10 Carroll Avenue. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor is hereby authorized and directed to enter into temporary construction easements with property owners in the area of 10 Carroll Avenue.
I second that.
I vote aye.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
I'm going to vote no.
Trustee Essex.
Yes.
And you have one more?
Yes. Whereas the village of Fredonia has an immediate need for the services of a deputy village clerk, now, therefore, be it resolved that Catherine DeRocher, is hereby appointed, effective September 12th, 2018, to the position of Deputy Village Clerk. And be it further resolved that Catherine DeRocher be compensated at a rate of $14 per hour with an estimated 20 to 30 hours per week as determined by the needs of the village without benefits.
I'll second the motion.
Trustee Bowers.
I vote aye.
Trustee Christina.
Yes.
Trustee Linden.
Aye.
Trustee Briggs.
Yes.
Trustee Essek.
Yes.
And Roger, I apologize, I didn't ask you to comment on your no vote.
That's okay.
I'd like to know.
You'd like to know why? I just think it opens up a lot of litigation to other property owners in the village to have issues, to have the village employees enter their property.
Very well. So, can we have a motion to adjourn?
If there's no other further business, I make a motion for adjournment.
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm a resident of Cottage Street in the northeast quadrant, and Cottage Street was not included in the water project. Most recently in the Observer, they listed the streets that'll be addressed, and Cottage Street was not. We have 50-year-old pipes and experience the same dirty water.
That was estimation, that was the decision pretty much from the company, from the engineering company. We know there are other streets in the area, and that's going to be the next step. But we can't possibly do everything at the same time. So that was they estimated that the streets we are doing were in greater need of this upgrade. But that doesn't mean that we won't come back to do those, the other streets.
Cottage Street is in the exact middle.
Mayor, with all due respect to this gentleman, this is way out of order here.
Yes.
Past the hearing, past the public portion, and we have a vote for adjournment on the table.
Okay.
Please come back to the next one, we'd love to hear from you. That's just, it's 9 o'clock and everybody's thinking.
Second the
motion.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Trustee Christina?
Yes.
Trustee Linden?
Aye.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Please give me an order.